Where have all the good men gone? A question cried by aging single women of decades past, flipping the pages of their future husband catalog, unimpressed with the listings, anxieties rising as their prospects diminish. In recent years, these women don't seem to mind being single, but they never received an answer to their question. It's not their fault, really. Every day, a new cuck is born, perpetually prone, surrounded by dopamine screens, comfortable means, loud and dismal, doing nothing notable, if anything at all, foregoing personal development and the pursuit of lofty achievements for hedons, avoiding life's beautiful trials out of fear or shame or idiotic complacency, fostering mental illness each passing day. It's not their fault, of course. We're giving in to an unthinking and dangerous mating schema and a tapered exponent curve with not much tail for the rest. The once and future suitable mates are dragging down birth rates in developed countries, thereby threatening the very existence of humanity, so I've been told. Is that right? Probably not. Apologies, ladies and NBs. The good men have come and gone, never really arrived, prefer the exclusive company of other men, or are whipped and chained already. My condolences. According to the internet, they've gone their own way. They're no longer needed. They're not men, they're women. Or they're around somewhere, embracing their Sigma male lifestyle by basement mining Buttcoin all day, terminally online and unqualified offline. But look around. It's a party, goddammit. Dance, my dudes. Dance. Your contemporaries are all invited. Your whole lineage RSVP'd. Welcome to the Cuckstar Bonanza.
You weren't satisfying enough with that.
You little cock! Beta male? I guess I'm a fucking cock. Manosphere trope. Genetic or something? MGTOW. A world that refuses to accept men.
I spend a lot of time on TikTok.
Humiliated, but I hate you. You're a very dominant person.
I'm a very dominant.
Be the most alpha of the beta male.
I show you what a real cock looks like.
Like my little bitch here.
Christianity, a couple.
People in power.
Women are upset.
Nice all of you. Conservative. That's
How does that make you feel?
Inadequate sexually.
What in the figgity fuck is a Cuckstar Bonanza? Hold on. Yeah, no, I got nothing on it. Tell you what, we'll just riff it. First, let's unpack the word cuck, shortened from cuckold. The noun, cuck, a man who allows his wife or girlfriend to have sex with other men. A father who is raising another man's children unwittingly. A weak, effeminate, unmanly, or inadequate man who is often dominated by their female partner. A man who is desperate for acceptance, approval, and affection from women. The transitive verb cuck, to dishonor by adultery, to make a cuckold or cuckquean out of someone by being unfaithful or by having sex with their spouse. Before you get your panties in a bunch, yes dear, there is a female version of cuckold, cuckquean, right? But it's not commonly used, like, at all. The meanings of the word cuck and its primal utterances have their roots in antiquity, from godhead mythical associations to symbolic fertility to a bashing insult of a fellow's manhood to the political slang or pejorative reversions on the internet. Etymologically, cuck's common attribution is to that of the old French word cuckold, or the modern French derivative cuckoo, the namesake of the lovely species of parasitic bird with a purported female habit of distributing her eggs across nests to incentivize the males to protect all of the eggs, ignorant of which ones are theirs. From the Middle English derivative cockwald, a compound of cuckoo, an onomatopoeic derivative of the cuckoo's call, and ald, the Frankish wald, meaning might or dominion, or the Proto-Germanic walda, meaning power or authority. Common etymologies are superficial. In English metaphor, to wear the horns is to be cuckolded. In Portuguese, to place the horns on someone means to cuckold them. In Italian, a husband who is cheated on is called a cornotto. What's the fascination with horns? It's pretty fucking odd, isn't it? Apart from the virility aspect, the ancient parallel of horns and the female sex organ is aesthetic. The fallopian tubes and uterus resemble horns. Bovine virility is really referencing the centrality of procreation in the female genital system. Here, take a look for yourself. This is the
Le sel est venu.
Sculpted around 24,000 BCE. It depicts a woman holding horns, her other hand pointed at her hoo-ha. In the reliefs and etchings of Neolithic Turkey, representations of goddesses alongside bulls and horns were common religious iconography. In ancient Greece and Rome, a horn container carried by mythical goddesses represented abundance, nourishment, harvest, and attributed the horn, the spirit of its contents, to the feminine. The Latinized word for the receptacle? Cornucopia, or the horn of plenty. The Egyptian hieroglyph for womb is understood to be a horned bovine uterus. I guess. In modern English vernacular, to be horny is to be sexually excited. A horn dog is a sex-addicted male. And a cuck isn't a cuck if his hot wife isn't plowed by a bull. Beyond historical markers, the semiotics of cuckoldry persist, as it's a uniquely male fear to be cuckolded. Aside from the psychological dent of an inferior sexual fitness, the man cannot be certain that a child is theirs, at least for most of history. In medieval Europe, the act of putting the horns on the cuckold wasn't an interpersonal event, it was communal. Medieval village folk used shame and public humiliation to ostracize the philanderer, for single men were scarce in supply due to war and pestilence, and adultery was as forbidden as murder. I'm boring you, aren't I? Okay, end historical rant. Although an explanation of the cuck's kink can be retrieved in a Freudian fashion, paraphilia is generally thought to originate in the developmental years, from dormant prepubescent experiences, not necessarily sexual, manifest in adolescent prodding, if curiously novel, then affecting arousal patterns if some level of experiential kinesis is met into early adulthood. Foregoing all that stupid science shit, however, one can buy into the psychoanalytical route at the cliched root of it, childhood, and the ticket's rather cheap, right? Okay, picture this. Stereotypically, the cuck was once a sensitive boy, born of an overbearing, possibly mentally ill mother who disciplines her son arbitrarily and cruelly, emotionally abused and demeaned by the matriarch of the house. Feelings of helplessness, neglect, and inadequacy are sensationalized as they mature into a man. Within a behavioral domain stilted by their upbringing, heightened adrenal responses follow the pain inflicted by their sexual partner. Studies show that within thrills and elevated risk scenarios, adrenaline is released and the perception of danger can result in extreme sexual response. Fear or danger is an arousal kickstart in cuckoldry and cuckold fantasies. It's not the best explanation, but it will do. Cuckoldry isn't like other fetishes. It's voyeuristic in its masochism. The getting off part is entirely in the cuck's mind. The cuck is a sadomasochist, integrating the developmental trauma induced by the fear of their harpy mom, mentally cumming buckets in the process. In this relationship, the pleasure goes both ways. The woman's sexual, the man's virtual. Not really conducive to reproductive success, is it? The focus thus far has been on the cuckold fetish, but what of the prosaic cuckery? An estimated 1 to 5% of husbands unknowingly father children that aren't theirs, while older studies indicate a self-reporting rate of around 10 to 30%. According to a survey of over 4,000 Americans, more than half of the hetero men have at one point fantasized their partner sexing someone else, compared to the 25% of hetero women. Gay, lesbian, and bisexual men and women were more likely to have a cuckolding fantasy. But what of polyamory? Promiscuity in an open relationship necessitates compersion, or the maximization in the significant other's joy in their infidelity at no cost to your happiness. Pleasure is empathized and extracurricular intimacy is idealized, in stark conflict with the jealousy and possessiveness of monogamous relationships. Like the Marleyism of one love, polyamory is another mode of companionship. It's still cucked, mind you. In the apparent popularization of the word cuck across all social media scapes, the word is usually deployed as an insult or employed as an ironic gesture. Today, the cultural affectation of the word has succeeded its original message, transformed into demeaning or emasculating slangish, sometimes endearing. In the earlier sewage lines of political discourse, cuck has swapped the prefix of conservative and the suffix of liberal, cuckservative, lib-cuck, cucked by their rigid affiliation to party politique. That's about the extent of it, a meany-weeny insult launched at your perceived political opponents, almost implying an inability to satisfy their partner. Where did the cuck spark originate? One can infer that 4chan is the culprit. In 2010, when cuck and cuckservative hashtags were indexed on Twitter by alleged white nationalists who thought the mainstream conservative pipeline was too gay and inclusive, 4chan rallied their elite hacksaws and neat lords to do as they do. If you were to take stock in the analysis of Trump-era normie media, the popularity of the word's usage during the Gamergate nonsense and leading into the 2016 election was indicative of the rise of the alt-right. According to this analysis, racist, misogynist, and heteronormative cletuses ran virtually rampant in Drudge Cavern message boards, typing out crimes against humanity, bringing down the establishment brick by brick by saying what anguished, brainlit racialists have always said. Now, immigration and progressive policies are the boot upon the white man's head, inviting hordes of darkies to take the coveted pink and porcelain, shoving Judaic propaganda down their children's throats so that little Timmy can recite Marx and sin and Sweet Britney Courtney can miscegenate the superior race away. Hence, the cucking of all things Anglo, according to anonymous accounts on the internet. The unfortunate racial connection in the political usage of the word and in fetishized cuckoldry is noted. However, the cultural perceptions of this are extremified by internet porn. Readily apparent in the cuckold genre, there's typically a dad-bod white dude fawning at the feet of his wife as she's railed by a Debo doppelganger, with ample references to the disparity of sexual prowess and the size of schlong. Sure, these racial vacations from matrimony occur outside of porn, but are unlikely normative, as cuckoldry isn't confined to the race element. Rather, it's catering to a fetish that's invariably BDSM in flavor. The racialization is perhaps an additional fetish. Now, there's nothing immediately wrong with open relationships, cuck kinks, swinging, interracial bondage, and the like, but the cuckoldry persuasion is frankly deviant, as in deviating from the norm. It transforms mental anguish into a high, a momentous thought that produces an intellect orgasm in the sexually deviated man. The same can be applied to the socially deviated cuck, their fragile and hysterical ways begetting an addiction to pitiful glances. That same momentous thought, jonesing for another hit of validation. Their drug, a virtuous ivory scaffold to climb, where atop they may jizz into the wind, imagining their own visage of faux superiority, firing "look at me" loads over the inattentive denizens below, who, if stirred by the rain, figure full well that those shots above were just blanks. This was never supposed to be a series, so just go ahead and click the next one. That is part of the same video, so go ahead and click that. Click. The stellar penultimate, shining with the luster of tin, desperate to radiate beyond the heat of their bitter peers. Emotional regulation disorders unresolved. Insecurities pepper their step. Verily, a walking character flaw. The Cuckstar. For the purposes of this video, a cuck will be defined as the following. A young man, divorced from the life of liberty, willingly suffered, appeasing the feminine grift and banshee woes so that their existence might finally be acknowledged, feeling gracious that he's still allowed his penis, so long as it's not his sword, and that his body is not meant to be honed, as his spirit shall remain unctuous and dull. For his mind and action must be an unwitting service to others and their perception of him. His predilections towards sex, dominance, and prestige are stamped out by his civil nature. His manhood is cucked by agents of infidelity. His masculine drives subverted by societies of control. Relegated from man to voyeur, an observer immobile, a mate incapable. The cuck cannibalizes the best of himself as he's starved of potential, forced to extol his deserved deprivation by kneeling affront what he believes to be female desire and male acceptance. He's shown he's become better for his cucking via woke obligations, social consumerism, or by obedience to the state and its propaganda. The cuck succumbs to the sad thrill of being righteously subjugated by authoritarian forces, interpersonally or ideologically. They protest as emblems, not as drivers, claiming the prize of propriety without skin in the game. They signify themselves as allies to the oppressed and the downtrodden. As battle standards in wars they'll sidestep fighting in. The essence of the pathological, annoying man is the cuck. Weak, duplicitous, and inauthentic, concerned with trivial moral quandaries outside of their purview, willing to demean themselves in fealty to a feigned and beggared virtue. Okay, all right, I'll put the fountain pen down, okay. Bluntly put, a cuck is a busybody bitch, a step to stomp on, an audience of one's own Sado show, a cheerleader, an expert, an effeminate wastrel who lambasts the better pedigree of their peers and competitors while fumbling at the chastity belt of their meaningless existence. Oh, and they'll probably let you fuck their wife too. Now, what's a cuck to a cuckstar? Is there a litmus test for this neologism? One might think the star to be the effeminate Twitterer who spends all day chastising wrongthink, condemning people as Nazis while they consume products manufactured by slave labor, complaining loudly to colleagues through the brim of their soy lattes, scheduling their fiance's dick appointment with Flaco Fabio from Englewood, a bull come highly recommended by the cuck's therapist. An exaggerated bio, better attributed to the cuck but not the star. The cuckstar is, at the face, someone who proudly pretends the conceptual cuck, in service to, in modulation of, or in rejection by, either for simp points or gold stars, or that it's the right and honorable way to be, or because they're fearful of the consequences of being cucked. They're readily aware of the label. They live for optics, perceive comic book virtues, and antagonistic civility as the high moralisms to adopt. Authenticity expressed is a currency to them. Genuine or counterfeit, doesn't matter. There's plenty of legal tender to choose from for the cuckstar, but what's purchased is always from the profile depot. The cuckstar is hyper-aware of cucks and their machinations, as the retinue bolsters their stature and lends aspects to their personality to be against the cucks. In applying these jaded sensibilities to ride the high horse of sociability, their display of this strenuous stardom is how they confront the cuck paradigm, seeing themselves either above or beneath its criterion. Regardless of their successes or their star power, they're cucked all the same. If you're not gelling with my elocution, I understand, right? It's a little too much, right? Let me proffer an addition to this caricature, an example of the real cuckstar.
Welcome to the stage, Mr. Haydon Bardley, aka Call of the Wild 42, the MGTOW Meninist with no FAP tendencies.
I am a man.
You are.
Cucks and simps, hoes and bots. As a man, you should not be with females, with women. Join us on the journey. Get the physique you want, get the girls you want, and how to go from the victim mindset to smash that subscribe button and
See me here.
oh my god, it's so good!
The acronym of Men Going Their Own Way, an online collective loosely comprised by men who've grown tired of the traditional mating games, antagonized by the injustices perpetrated by females, and instead of submitting to the societal man-bashing, as most bachelors would, they willfully exit the gene selection pool and fuck the Jesus out of other men. That's not right, yeah.
Ah, yes.
Instead of being beta cucks,
Soy boy beta cuck.
simping to terrible, subprime women, they stoically choose to build muscle, gain status, and pursue glory for themselves and only themselves, leaving the femme fatales and dumpster thought hoes behind in the process. Good for them, I guess. I don't know. MGTOW is a natural response to aggravated feminism, the declining mental well-being of the average man, and the systemic issues disproportionately worsening the lives of men and their families. Inside the movement, there's an outright rejection of marriage, of putting pussy on a pedestal, of pursuing sexual relationships with women. Because women don't adhere to their end of the deal. They admonish men, betray lovers, and bastardize children with their selfish and hypergamous ways. There's a strange bravery in MGTOW. It seems to rebel against stifling norms and pathologizing women, avoiding the pitfalls of a liberalized society corrupted. And through hard work and singular focus, the MGTOW man ascends to an ideal that women and society explicitly punishes, but implicitly demands of them. They attempt this ascension unapologetically and vocally, in synchronicity with other men on the path. It's a bravery unbecoming, because the courage to ascend and become the man they idealize is adrift, unwelcome in the modern world of conformity, corporate adulting, and sensitivity. There's no room for the man's man anymore. It's uncouth, impolite to embody the patriarch. No one cares for your brutish, phallic ambitions. Your dutiful compulsion towards chivalry and family is sexist and heteronormative. You're toxic. MGTOW can be described as toxic. Sure. However, their gripes aren't unfounded, and the tragedies of men systemically abused and financially exploited are very real. Women may lie profusely, but statistics don't. The situation for the hetero man is more dire than ever. The cuckstar lifestyle becomes less of an attraction and more of a necessity for young men to stand out from the crowd. Climbing the stairs of progress is strenuous. The youth of man lacks the wisdom to discern whether the stairs lead upwards or downwards, but the taste of a certain courage compels them to keep climbing. After all, there might be pussy at the top. Courage is dead. Politeness suffocated it. Chivalry maimed it. MGTOW, there is no courage in in the Cuckstar, just as there's no victory in virginity. It's sad to see that these men are so absorbed in their ostracization, martyred by the injustices levied against men writ large, banging the war drum against all women ever. But in that aggrandizing flagellation, they reify a construct of oppression, perpetrating against men and boys. By instantiating their opposition to it, rebel against it. How do they rebel? By doubling down on stereotype and caricature, dreaming themselves to be the strong silent types, chauvinist madmen, nearly rich playboys, Spartan homosexual. MGTOW, what the fuck is that? Back in my day, we just called them faggots. In this emulation, they rebel against a powerful, nebulous structure of emasculating male hatred they alone cannot surmount. So they insist men need to bandy together to become men again, recruiting other disaffected chaps to the cause. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? In other words, in conforming to the parameters of this wild goose chase into unrealistic sigma maledom, so that they can one day buck the matriarchy, own property, and fuck hundreds of bitches. And in doing all this, they lose their independence in the process. They become one with the crowd of angry, roided pickup artists, judgments clouded by shared resentments. They become cucked by meninist masochism and homoerotic idolatry. But the personal sovereign loss makes them feel powerful. Their problem space is simpler now, and the para-camaraderie gained is worth its weight in gold if they have no meaningful relationships in their life. Though the spheres of action are limited to how beast mode they can go into the gym or how much money they can earn in a labor market they're never getting out of. Those real who mainline the manosphere like Sigma juice junkies. Come get your hungry man enemas and let's do some fucking burpees. We're all gonna make it, bros. No, not the no fat. Please don't make me talk about the fucking... Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. And weak men create hard times. A quotation by G. Michael Hopf, popularized by the manosphere.
It's entirely possible. This is that cycle that everybody says. Hard times make strong men. Strong men make easy times. Easy times make weak men.
A quotation from his novel, Those Who Remain. On its face, this quote convincingly explains away the tides of history. It's almost a platitude at this point. You might even find yourself paraphrasing it in conversation about modernity or something. But it's odd the origin is from a relatively unpopular post-apocalyptic tale and not some pop scientific New York Times bestseller authored by insert micro-celebrity academic here. Surely it can't be that simple. A couple minutes of contemplation reveals the quote to be more impotent than explanatory. Just how do strong men reliably create favorable periods of time? Do they wholly control the environment and circumstances ushering in economic prosperity or cessation of violent conflict? If the progression of the socio-econoculture worked in tangential squares that cycled verifiably, and we could identify this revolution at its specific intervals and even categorize the degrees of angular momentum with the fitness and psychic status of men, then we'd be living in a 32-bit simulation programmed on a
Windows 98 computer.
Its architect designed by a crackhead inspired by the Hellenic degenerate Aristotle that thought up all of this anacyclosis shit. The retrospective good times are imagined great by the late lame and the ignorant, and granulated into categories irrespective of each other, because times were good for some, but not all, and the strong were always conniving ways to make the hard times even harder. Now, why hammer down this singular quote? Who gives a shit, really? Well, if we accept that there's a rise in cuckery, this rationale is used to explain it away as men today are weak and require adversity. That'll fix everything. And this is patent-pending retardation. Cuckstars elevate themselves within this rationale conversationally to their masculine peers, to the void of internet comment sections, and to the disinterested Starbucks barista who was denied his advances for the 7th time this month.
Just leave her alone, Dirk.
All this talk about flaccid men and the rigidity of recurring eras. What about the Starbucks barista? How about females, then? Do women not advance the times? Are they the quote-unquote weak men in this retarded formula of human civilization? After all, it's a droning heterodox, trite idea that men possess the volition of society's creation while women just birth and rear the men therein. And yeah, it's technically correct, at least in most of recorded history, yet potentially inaccurate when assessing net well-being of this newfound liberalization of the sexes in the here and now and what's possible in the future. understanding implicitly that women provide more for society than birthing men, nurturing people, and driving phallic desires, that gets you halfway there. Women ought to establish their personhood as men do, not for their sake, but for what's required of our future, the demands of our species' survival. And if they don't do so now, they'll be compelled to affront the charge alongside men, without the experience and development of their compatriots. Surely men can't shoulder the entire responsibility themselves. Didn't these women get the memo? Bitch, didn't you know you can't forego the trade-offs of these positive freedoms to continue on reaping the rewards of an older kind of servility? There's levels to this equality shit. What, you want to have your cake and eat it too? Well, get your piping bag out, honey. We got some baking to do. Men, as of late, are more inclined to offset resentments to women, especially now that they're in competition with them and not for them. Assumedly, females still have the privileges of womanhood, of motherhood, of femininity, of beauty, capitalizing on them without remorse, insisting on blindness to their advances and hypocrisies. The burden of motherhood warrants them that, naturally, even if they don't want to or can't be mothers. Men, by and large, are easily antagonistic to women for these reasons. Additionally, it's infuriating to cuckstars, sexually unselected, be that they understand the rules, aren't playing to win, and will accuse women of cheating the game. I mean, what would the cuckstar win by playing? What's the prize? Love. If men are to be loved, they're expected to man up, to pay up, to be men with all the consequences, cucked in struggle for female selection, starving themselves to satiate spousal appetites, or fishing acceptance out from appeasing women's desires, to drive toward an exceptional life to their own detriment, in competition with others, or at the behest of an ideal they might not hold, or in service to a legacy they'll never see, and to continue on while being instructed that what they do is not required of them anymore, that they're toxic or oppressive for doing what's expected. Men will do all of this at the chance to be loved, even if the contradictions drive them insane, even if it means working themselves to death, even if it means a life of utter failure and absurd solitude, even if it's all for naught and they're still unloved, alone by their 50th birthday. For man, it appears love is mainly conditional. The majority of women are loved unconditionally. Women need not reciprocate the struggles traditionally appointed to men, and why should they? There's no love to earn, necessarily. They're fine as they are, and though this may sound like a privilege, there's a select few trade-offs that even the scales. This is not to say that women are immune to the struggles of men. It's affirming the common strife endured to be a man ontologically, or rather, men oft gravitate and intertwine themselves with the commonality because it verifies them, or simply put, it allows them to feel like a man. Weeds aside, humans require love in their lives. Between the sexes, the aspects of attaining this love are unbalanced. Notice that men who are loved are rarely cucks or cuckstars, right? It's nearly self-evident. Can you imagine a loved cuck? Have you ever met a romantically fulfilled cuckstar? Love is the best incentive, the only party favor a man needs in the bonanza. As a species, we've won the lottery. We've evolved past the point of bipedal return, cultivating nearly 90% of the world's biomass to cater to our protein needs, dominating the problem space of ecological bents by amassing material mounds of substance in crop and city, consuming beyond the survival substrate of the other fauna that we live amongst. The wealth of nations became the consumption by citizens. Peasant became consumer. Slave became worker. We hit the jackpot, and it's unfortunate. We're unluckier than before we won the lottery, arguably. What happens with most lottery winners? They spend and spend. Endless receipts, evidence of an impossibility of bankruptcy. They become mad and lend out, inviting all kinds of drama and severity into their lives. They consume unto excess, thinking themselves godly as gout forms. They intoxicate heavily, so narcotically high their dicks can't get hard. They make euphoria and dysphoria indispensable. They turn luxury into trash heaps. They turn delicacy into waste to be treated. They deteriorate and age, neither really rich or at all penniless, because in the end, lotteries aren't won by the dead. Times are forever hard. Man is always weak. There is no cycle, no differentiation, because history doesn't discriminate along the circumference of a circle. Our prejudices are as ahistorical as our record is verifiable. This quote is retarded. Certified Cuckstar. Plutonomy and its consequences have been a disaster to the male libido.
The windows themselves are like hypergraphical constructed by buildings beyond your comprehension.
You can blame woke profilicity, culture wars, and their whining fasci provokers, the authority of suppressive bean counters and buzzkills, the virtual scape's dehumanizing candor, or the social atomization within the post-left, whatever right, neoliberal funhouse we live in. You can blame consumerist ease and its market for lowered fertility rates and decimated testosterone levels wrought by EDCs like phthalates. You can blame industry and capital and its corporate economizing. You can blame your biology, your upbringing, your geography, your leadership. You can blame all women. You can blame some of them. You can blame yourself too. All the blame in the world. Blame, disdain, complain all you want. You're still cucked. Being inspired by motivational videos or watching shit on YouTube isn't gonna change that. Why Atar? You sound so disappointed, so bitter, so heteronormative, so toxically masculine. You're criticizing men affected by the side effects of consumerist dystopia without acknowledging the peaceable, progressive strides of their better angels. It's not me, it's them. Witness the content of the MGTOW manosphere. Endless users or losers guides on how to avoid the cuck while churned out content cashes out the buck. Confident and wide-eyed content creators want you to believe that through negligence, cowardice, stupidity, and complacency, or really insert political pejorative here, women and their girl boss, harlot ways are killing manhood. State-enforced feminization is drugging and murdering our young boys, and you have to mete out these tragedies in oddly Praetorian ways. By signing up to Man Bun Academy, a Manburs only monthly subscription, you too can put these harpies in their place and level up your phallic energy cores. The corollaries are always existential, as if the collective unconscious screened children of men in a cosmic focus test group, and the participant metaneuronal maps all agreed that it'd be a fantastic series finale to Homo Sapiens, the shortest running primetime show in Earth's history. But that's all bullshit. The rhetoric is placating single men, predating on their insecurities, encouraging the embodiment of caricatures, and men and women are discouraged back into a haven of cuckery regardless. The specific suffering of the modern single man is just that, specific. Generalizing circumstances and edge cases to rationalize why the bachelor life perpetuated is better than the potential unhappiness is the best way to cuck yourself even harder. Why conform to the mean of trends? Why embellish your value and obsess over personal development if you're still unloved? Why would you continue implicating that when you were born, God said fuck that nigga, cursed you with genetical faults and a complete lack of self-awareness, and that's why women won't give up the pussy? Are you gonna let dank memes, bot accounts, and promiscuous women embitter you and color your ambitions? You're gonna let random people on the internet confirm insecurities and biases you manufactured while alone with your jaded self in your coomer brain. What no pussy does to a motherfucker. Sure, the lives of good men have been ruined by wayward, callous women repeatedly. Men's issues are abundant. Court systems have made marriage, love, and family making hazardous. Treading cautiously around women like some battered fuckless cynic to avoid the problems assumedly caused by inviting them into your life, furthering your lonely spiral into isolation, is abjectly cuckish. Okay, I get that the one that got away doesn't come close to your pectoral gains, account balance increases, freedom from naggery, and the validating praises from other men, but even still, these perks aren't exclusive to going your own way. The cost of your Cuckstar rebellion is dejection, and whether you like it or not, the bonanza is bumping and you're still alone with your dick in your hand. Blaise Pascal said it best: all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And if that room is filled with luxurious shit and vacant of love because you went your own way, humanity's problems end up becoming your fucking problem. Today, the youth strife is manageable. The system ran out of obvious oppression, and the rage has been raged against instead. The novelty is minuscule, the excess pitiful. The people are lame, the grapevine insane. The scene saturated, the memes opioids. The dreams cheapened with a pursuit off course, happiness undead. The world is dying while humanity is thriving. The nations were inhospitable, the wars unwinnable, the asset allocation untenable. The dollar was debased and fed-pilled. The only way to cope is to be based or to be red-pilled, to cuck or be cucked. You may be asking, why did I subject you to this video? To be honest, I randomly typed Cuckstar Bonanza and saw that there wasn't a single upload with that title, and I figured I'd fix that travesty. But why? An effort to explain away the deeper dissonance symptomatic of a team rivalry between the sexes and their atomized players. To wean your aggravating addiction to red and black pills, prescribed by every boring anon with a depressive clutch, by every manipulative chode with a sizable following. There are no red pills, black pills, green pills, clear pills. I have none to give. I'd rather prescribe a better gelatin to men, a diet plan, more or less. Stop eating the hors d'oeuvres. Don't feel compelled to dance or celebrate. Nobody's watching. You're not special. You're not a celebrity, a star. Play acting otherwise doesn't fill your red cup when the keg's empty and the pretty women and good men have left the venue. No one's here to love you. The loudspeakers are lying. There's no shred of reality to be found in the DJ booth, the bar, the dance floor, the vomit-stained bathrooms. Avoid the cokeheads and weirdos at the seams. They're only there to insult your intelligence and give out discount codes to courses like how to get laid and stay paid in the Bonanza, how to be the fittest player the Bonanza's ever seen, or how to escape the Bonanza's after party of dating, marriage, kids, infidelity, divorce, pain, ruin, and then probable suicide. You don't have to be here. You don't have to be in attendance. Just leave like everyone else, turn off your phone, go home, and go to sleep. You got work in the morning, and the sun doesn't give a damn about your hangover.